are you today? The 5 is back to bring more subjects about the business world. I am Mariana and in this video we'll talk about the compliance. Do you know what is compliance? Do you know the importance of compliance? In addition, we will also talk about some relevant topics such as code of conduct, labor law and much more. If you like things like this, please don't forget to subscribe on the channel, like this video and share it to your friends. Thank you so much.
The word compliance comes from the verb to comply with. A compliance program is a set of internal company's policies and procedures to comply with internal or external laws, rules, and regulations. Compliance can be divided in three main areas: human and labor rights, environmental and socioeconomic aspects like corruption. This program was created for the company to create mechanisms capable of preventing the practice of illegal acts such as corruption or fraud. You may feel that this isn't important, as the company you work for has always followed the law and never done anything wrong. But I say, you are wrong. Do you know why? This is simple, because companies are made up of people, and you cannot claim that they are all as ethical as you are. But how did the idea of creating compliance programs came about? The first legislation to join the anti-corruption movement was the American legislation. It all happened after a political scandal in 1974, the Watergate, where there was a slush fund payment, and at the time this was not provided by law, which meant that it was not considered as a crime. After that time, several laws were created to ensure that companies did the right thing. Do ethics and compliance have the same meaning? Ethics means doing what is right, regardless of what the law says. It's also conscious choice that is person. Ethics are proactive, not reactive, as is compliance. Our personal value system includes our character, fundamental values, and principles, guides us when make decisions. A teacher once told us that ethics is doing the right thing, but the definitions of the right thing can vary due to several factors, such as culture, for example. The most important thing is to understand that mistakes are forgiven, unethical not. Now I'm going to show you a very interesting video that explains the definition of ethics. The video is an interview that took place in the Programa do Jô. The interview is a teacher called Mário Sérgio Cortella. And if you want to watch the full video, I will leave the link in the description. Training of the corporate ethical culture promotes feelings of self-worth throughout the company. It creates an environment in which managers and employees want to come to work. The net result of a strong corporate ethical culture, combined with employee full of integrity, is a profitable company with a strong prospect for operation sustainability. It's important to note that when a company commits an illegal act, two things can happen. It will have a fall in its reputation, or it will suffer some punishment. To exemplify this, I decided to bring one example. In Brazil, in 2018, one of the employees of Carrefour, responsible for the security of the place, was ordered to remove a dog called Moichinha that remained in the parking lot of the hypermarket. To carry out the orders, the man offered the animal a rat poison and attacked it using an element bar. The store claimed that Manchinha was a victim of being run over, but later admitted that assault. The dog was rescued by officials from the city's zoonosis center, but died after being bitten. The responsible veterinary concluded that the animal died of hemorrhage. Upon completion of the investigation on December 18, 2018, the employee was charged with crimes of abuse and mistreatment of animals. The case was publicized by social networks and ended up quickly reverberating, generating a wave of protests in Brazil against chain stores. Manchinha received several honors of his death. In February 2019, the case served as a justification for proposing strict laws on the crime of animal abuse.
Due to this case, many people stopped buying at the store to declare their disapproval.
What is corporate governance? Corporate governance is a system of policies, processes, and rules that guide and control the behavior of a company. It's the structure that defines the relationships between shareholders, management, the board of directors, and our interested parties. Corporate governance policies need to be applicable and applied consistently. Good corporation governance promotes a culture of integrity and leads to a business with positive and sustainable performance. Good governance signals to the market that an organization is well managed and that management's interests are aligned with the other stakeholders. As such, it can provide companies with a competitive advantage. As previously stated, the complex program is a set of company policies and procedures to comply with internal or external laws, rules, and regulations. Therefore, this can vary from company to company. But how will people understand what they should follow? For this, a code of conduct must be created. A code of conduct is a set of organization rules or standards regarding organization values, beliefs, and ethics, as well as matter of legal complexes that govern the conduct of the organization and its members. Organization members are responsible for adhering to the code of conduct and will be held accountable for failing to do so. Most large businesses will have a code of conduct, which are often developed in response to legislation, regulation, business activities, and behavior or some sort of ethical scandal. The Code of Business Conduct needs to provide the guidance of promote a productive workplace, protection personal data, a violence-free workplace, and compliance with international competition laws. What is privacy data? Data privacy is related to how a piece of information or data should be handled based on its relative importance. For instance, you likely wouldn't mind sharing your name with a stranger in the process of introducing yourself, but there are information you want to share at least not you till you become more acquainted with that person. Opening a new bank, for example, you will probably be asked to share a tremendous amount of personal information well beyond your name. For business, data privacy goes beyond the personally identifiable information of these employees and customers. It also includes the information that helps the company operate, whether it's proprietary research and developed data or financial information that shows how it's spending and investing its money. When data that should be kept private gets in your hands, bad things can happen. A breach at a corporation can put proprietary data in the hands of a competitor, for example.
Hi guys, I am Taina and I will talk about the gifts and hospitality policy, the concerns about the supplier and customer's relation, and in the end the channel an employee can use to report an issue. And I will talk about gifts and hospitality. What's the gifts and hospitality policy about? This policy set out the procedure staff must be followed when give or receive gifts and hospitality. This policy applies to full-time and the part-time to employees on the substantive or fixed-term contract, and associate persons such as seconded agency staffs, contractors, and other employees under a contract of service. Seconded to website ethical corp, a principle sometimes applied to define what is the appropriate level of gift and giving or hospitality is that of about the reciprocity. If I accept an offer and I be able to offer the equivalent in value in return. For example, if my supplier offers me ticker to theater, would I be able to reciprocate? If the answer is no, then it may be seen the attempt to buy the favor and it's the advisable to not accept. How can companies support the staff? Many companies take a zero tolerance approach to the gifts and hospitality gift and receiving. However, this isn't always the most practical approach and can mean employees find themselves in awkward situation have to publicly decline the gift or hospitality. In the example of the Unilever, the company has a very limited policy establishing clear limits. Employees must not discuss, offer, or receive any gifts or hospitality activity involve public officials or their family member without the prior clearance from their business integrity officer. Offer or accept any gifts or hospitality or any favors which they intend or may be seen to influence business decisions or create obligation to do something in return. What are us concerned about supplier and customers relations? For a positive growth of business, all customers have to depend directly or indirectly on a good and reliable suppliers. A part of that expectations from the supplier, the customers also need to be loyal to them and so strengthen their relationship. Therefore, customers should work on building a strong and long-lasting supplier relation as they do with their own customers, and this is not complicated process. The positive customer supplier relationship begins with the initiative of the supplier to demonstrate his sensitive to the customer's needs and important point about this the satisfaction and the customer expect overall attention and convenience in all departments to ensure smooth fulfillment of his needs. Payments always on time. The customer should always negotiate for favorable payment terms before the deal is initiated. But once the order is placed, the commitment should be honored. Provide adequate flexibility. The customer should try to give supply as much flexibility as possible for them unless that is a competitive reason not to do it. Reasonable demands should be avoided. This tendency also connects to quality production. Personalize the relationship. The customer should always be in contact with the suppliers and visit frequently, not necessarily only when it's needed. He may also be invited to attend and give suggestions in some of their strategic meetings. Methods of improving business may also be discussed, sharing knowledge, opportunities, service benefits, software's compatibility would be beneficial for both. What is a channel an employee can use to report an issue? Problems in organization can be linked to behaviors that compromise the organization can be linked to people, group behavior, relationship to suppliers, actions today are unbenefited, bribery, abuse, relationships, and improper use of the company equipment. Each company has a specific recipe method for problems with respect to act and internal behavior. Some adopted own forms, website, and links. For example, in the Ambev company, and a quickly search we can find information about the commitment to act and the number to call in case of problems. Another way of reporting problems is for direct supervisors responsible for HR. These leaders may better be able to deal with the problem and help those affected by the problem, contributing to a more ethical environment. In the next part, you will see about the laws in Brazil and the United States. So stay home, wash your hands, and thank you for your attention. See you next time.
Hello guys, how are you? I hope you are doing fine. Here is Joyce, and today I'm going to talk about labor law. Do you know what is labor law about? Labor law is the branch of the law that governs relations between employers and employees. In Brazil, these rules are governed mainly by the CLT, or Consolidation of Labor Laws, and by the Constitution. It is divided into several areas, such as individual labor law, collective labor law, and public labor law. As previously mentioned, the main objective of labor law is to regulate the legal relationship between employers and employees. This relationship, which we can call an employment contract, is regulated in a specific way, distancing itself from the scope of civil justice. The logic of labor law is simple. In the legal understanding, there is no equality in employment contracts. In other words, there is no equality between the parties to the contract, which is assumed in civil relations. The employee is treated as low sufficient part of the relationship. This means that legally the worker will always be the most fragile part of this contract. Here in Brazil, the minimum level of social rights is set out in our Constitution. Labor regulations cannot fall short of this constitutional basis, but they can always be beyond. This means that any proposal that falls short of the minimum stated in our Constitution will be deemed unconstitutional and its effectiveness vetoed. Principles in legal language are general propositions inferred in the culture and legal order that shape the creation, revelation, interpretation, and application of law. That is, they are general bases that we must follow when creating, interpreting, or applying a law. Because of the principles, here in Brazil we have some basic labor rights guaranteed, such as FGTS and unemployment insurance. It is worth remembering that it is thanks to this system that we guarantee this effectiveness of the labor court, since these principles are used to base the results from it. Since we are already talking about labor law in Brazil, I'm sure you have already heard about the CLT, am I right? But you know what is the CLT? The CLT, or Consolidation of Labor Laws, was enacted during the new state under the dictatorial government of Getúlio Vargas on May 1st of 1943 and received this name of consolidation because it unified the various labor standards that already existed in Brazil in the 40s. There are disagreements among academics on whether the CLT would have innovated or not in our legal system. That is, whether the CLT would only have unified the existing labor standards, or whether it would also have created some standards that did not exist at the time. In any case, it's unanimous the position of academics that the main objective of CLT is to unify the rules that already exist in our legal system, such as the rule that predicted the minimum wage dues, that determined vacation rights, and those that provided for working hours, among others. Imagine how difficult it was to know what workers' rights were in the 40s, when there was no internet and the rules of labor law were all scattered in our legal system. Think of a judge in the interior of Brazil back there without the copy of a decree law. How would he apply the law? That is the importance of the CLT. Unification of the existing rules in our legal system contributed to a greater protection of workers, simplifying the identification and application of the rights existing at the time. The CLT brings together the rights and duties of employees and employers, as well as some important concepts for labor relations. So, let's see some of them. Who can be considered an employee? According to the Article 3 of the CLT, it is any person who provides services of a non-occasional nature to the employer under his dependence and for a salary. For someone to be considered an employee, they must fulfill some requirements. The first is to be an individual. The second is that the provision of services cannot be contingent, that is, the employee must have a defined and continuous work day. The third is that there must be a subordinate relationship between employee and employer. The fourth requirement is that employee must receive a salary for the service provided. And finally, the fifth requirement, the provision of service must be of a personal nature in the figure of the employee. The employee cannot call a friend or a relative to provide the service on his behalf. He must perform the service for which he was hired. Another important concept in the CLT is the work card, which is the worker's identification document. There will be your personal data and the employment contract data, such as who the employer is, the start date, and the salary. According to the Article 53 of the CLT, when the company takes the work card to sign, they have up to 48 hours to return it to the employee. If they passes that deadline, they will then have to pay a fine to the employee. The minimum wage is another important point of the CLT. It is in Article 76 and also in Article 7 of the Federal Constitution. These rules say that the minimum wage is the minimum consideration that must be paid to the worker in order to please his basic needs and those of his family, such as food, health, education, housing, transportation, social security, among others. Unfortunately, we know that minimum wage does not please all these needs, serves at most two of them. Unfortunately, this is the reality. Finally, the concept of maternity leave. According to the Article 392 of CLT, the pregnant employee has the right to 120-day maternity leave without prejudice to employment and salary. In other words, she can be absent from work without risking losing her salary or being fired. But when can an employee apply for maternity leave? The employee can apply for maternity leave between the 28th day before delivery until the occurrence of delivery. Another thing, the pregnant cannot be fired from the knowledge of childbirth, that is, from the moment she discovers that she is pregnant until 5 months after the child's birth. Well guys, I hope you are enjoying our video about compliance and I hope you got some knowledge about labor law. Thank you very much and wash your hands.
Hi, I'm Augusto and I'm here for talking a little about United States labor law. United States labor law sets the rights and the duties for employees, labor unions, and employers in the United States. Labor laws basically aim to remind the inequality of bargaining power between employees and employers, especially employers. Over the 20th century, federal law created minimum social and economic rights and encouraged state laws to go beyond the minimum to favor employers. The Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938 requires a federal minimum wage, currently $7.25, but higher in 28 states, and this encourages working weeks over 40 hours throughout time and a half overtime pay. There are no federal or state laws requiring paid holidays or paid family leave. A contract of employment can always create better terms than statutory minimum rights, but to increase their bargaining power to get better terms, employers organize labor unions for collective bargaining. If a majority of employees is a workplace support union, employee entities have a duty to bargain in good faith. Unions can take collective action to defend their interests. Since the Civil Rights Act of 1964, all employee entities and labor unions have a duty to treat employees equally, without discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, and disabilities. And now, we're talking about the difference between the labor law in the United States and Brazil. For start, we're talking about money. In Brazil, the minimum wage is 1,045 reais per month. This is the difference because in Brazil you receive per month. In the United States have three categories of work. The first is minimum wage too, but you receive it per hour. In today is $7.25 per hour. So you work more, you earn more money. The second is similar to Brazil. You have a salary employees, you receive a fixed salary per month. And the third is contract, when you receive a specific quantity for some work or for some time, and the employee you have a contract and okay, it's this time you receive this quantity. So these three forms of working in the United States. In Brazil, it's more common. You have a salary, so you know how long you work and how much you receive. And the minimum wage is 1,045 reais. But it's common salary in Brazil. But in Brazil, But in Brazil, you have a CLT, is a law in the government law. For the first thing, you receive a 13th salary, is an additional salary. So you work 1 year and you receive one salary more, understand? So this don't have in United States, it's Brazilian law. Other things you receive for meals, you receive for transportation to and for the work, is it's good for Brazilians. You receive maternity and father leave. But talking about this is a little difference in Brazil and United States. United States have a law when the company have more of 15 employees, is obligated to have provide paternity or maternity leave for last 12 weeks. So, but it don't pay. In Brazil, you receive if you have children. You receive for this time when you stay in home, and United States you don't receive. Is maybe if the company have in the contract you can receive, but in Brazil is obligation. If you have children, you receive for the time you don't work. When you stay sick, in Brazil, if you have a doctor, a signature and something about this, when you prove you are sick, you receive per hours or day you stay without the work. You don't work and you receive per this. In United States you don't receive. So if you work, you stay sick and you don't work, you don't go to work, you don't receive nothing. So this difference is a law in Brazil, and it's good law for the employee. The social taxes is similar to Brazil. The social security United States in Brazil is similar to taxes. The work week in Brazil is 44 hours. In the United States is 40 hours. But in Brazil you have 1 or 2 hours. You don't receive 40 hours, but you have a break. So you have a lunch time, your break time, and you don't receive for this hour, but you have this hour for work, for have some rest, resolve something, so you can stop working and back after. So in Brazil, you have health insurance for you and sometimes for your family too. Transportation from and to and from your work, and meal. Some business in Brazil have a card. The money is only for meal. So you can spend this money in the supermarket and luncheonette, but not in all the things. It's a different money. So this is the differences about the employee and the employer. In the United States, is more flexible on the part of the employer, and the contract that you make the rules. So you need read a lot, pay attention this contract, because this is the rule you're working from. In Brazil, you have these guarantees about the government, about the CLT, so you have more easy for who when you work is more easy for you, but if you have a business, is bad because you have a lot of taxes for pay. You pay a lot of some directives. So someone likes, someone don't dislike this. It's so difficult for talk about because have two parts and two different, a lot difference about this situation. And you can make your decision about your work and what the best country for work, Brazil or United States, is a lot difference. Other thing, curious thing about the United States, if you work waiters, you receive a lot of tips. So you don't receive this minimum hours, the 7.20. It's similar to $2 per hour you receive for the company, but you receive a lot of tips, so you receive more. is open. In Brazil, you need to receive the minimum wage is 1,045 reais. So if you receive tips, is more of this. So it's a long difference between. Another thing, curious thing about the difference, in United States you don't have a carteira de trabalho. What is carteira de trabalho? Similar to a notebook, where you have all the information about your work. Who is your manager? When you enter, when off this business. It's so good because when you go to different things for church work, your employer see all the things you worked before and how long you stay is more general. In the United States, so you don't have this. So this other difference, curious difference, because in Brazil we born and grown about, oh yes, you know you need a carteira de trabalho for work and something, and in the United States you don't have this, so it's difference. And this, you make your think about is better or not, and this is thank you.
I'm Christopher, and to contextualize about tax legislation, I'm gonna use the same company presented in our previous video. I hope you enjoy it.
Amazon is a very sophisticated tax player.
Amazon is very much the canary in the coal mine.
They're really doing what a lot of politicians wish more companies would do.
Amazon is a very sophisticated tax player.
We start with amazing Amazon. Somewhere CEO Jeff Bezos is smiling.
It's one of only 2 US companies' $1 trillion valuation.
No one in history has become as rich as quickly.
It's made Jeff Bezos the richest man in the world.
That is 100 million Prime subscribers globally.
And if you put those Prime subscribers in one country, it would be the 14th largest on the planet. But that massive company paid no federal income tax on more than 11 billion in profits in 2018, and somehow they actually got a 129 million tax rebate.
The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is passed.
So, how do they do it? First, there's the tax bill.
Corporations are literally going wild over this.
Amazon plows large portions of revenue back into itself to cultivate long-term growth. This started earlier on with Bezos using the strategy to get big fast.
Amazon has actually been self-funding for several years now. The company generates significant free cash flow. You know, one of the things I like about Amazon, this is a company that doesn't really kind of rest on their laurels and is constantly trying to innovate, is constantly trying to meet the needs of the customer.
Amazon has invested so much revenue in itself over the years that embark on lucrative ventures like Amazon Web Service and even become our Hollywood studio with shows like The Marvelous Miss Maisel and Jack Ryan. Sometimes it didn't even make a profit. And when that happened, it could carry forward losses to write off on future tax bills. In 2018, those carry-forward losses eligible for federal write-off amounted to 627 million. Then there's massive federal tax credits, which the company's reports are primarily related to research and development from its AI-assisted logistics network to its suite of consumer electronics products. Amazon has poured tens of billions of dollars into research.
The big one last year was the expensing that is allowed for investments in plants and equipment and buildings and things of that sort.
But that's not the only tax credit Amazon qualifies for. Trump's tax Cuts and Jobs Act supercharged
The big problem with the U.S. economy is that it has not been as productive recently as in the past. And so one solution which would help sort of companies everywhere is if they invested more in machinery and training to make their workers more productive.
The tax breaks Amazon is getting, they're being rewarded for what they were going to do anyway. Because when you're a company as successful, as profitable, as cash rich as Amazon is, you make investments when you have the money to do them and when you see the need for those investments.
In 2018, Amazon had about $1.4 billion in total available tax credits. Finally, there's the company's use of stock-based employee compensation. Basically, this allows Amazon to pay employees using stock.
Amazon rewards its employees, especially its executives, with stock-based compensation. And Amazon's stock has been rising fairly substantially for many years. And so the size of that stock-based compensation is now very large and affords Amazon a large write-off.
Some say the federal government ends up making just as much in the long run from stock-based compensation because the stock is taxed when it's sold. But others have concerns of the stock when it's offered to employees versus the value.
They give executives the right to purchase a certain number of shares of stock at a set price. The price of the stock goes way up. The company is then allowed to write off the value of that stock, and suddenly the tax breaks can be huge.
Amazon deducted about $1.1 billion from its tax liability. But before we get ahead of ourselves, we should probably remember that Amazon does pay certain taxes like state taxes, local taxes, other federal taxes, and international taxes. In a statement to CNBC, an Amazon spokesperson said, Amazon pays all the taxes we are required to pay in the USA and every country where we operate, including paying $2.6 billion in corporate tax and reporting $3.4 billion in tax expense over the last 3 years. The company also touted the investments and job creation in the USA, but according to data compiled by the Institute of Taxation and Economic, Amazon had an effective federal tax rate of just 3% over 10 years. That's far below the ONS 35% corporate income tax rate in the United States and even the new 21% rate now. And Amazon's story is not exactly unique. Another disruptor, Netflix and General Motors, both report expected net federal income tax benefits in their 2018 annual filings. It all seems to be part of a larger trend over the past 70 years. We have seen a decline in corporate income tax revenue as a share of the larger economy, and in the last decade, companies as diverse as Southwest and Goldman Sachs, just to name a few, have all had at least a year where they reported net tax benefits in their SEC filings.
I think what a lot of economists would say is that the corporate tax is a very bad tax. One, you have a sort of a global economy where economic activity is everywhere. You have other countries cutting their tax rates. You want to sort of incentivize economic activity to be in your country. What do you want these companies to do? You want them to invest in new machinery, you want them to invest in their workers, you want them to have more profits, which then they can use to invest more. That's what you want corporations to do. You don't want corporations necessarily to be paying lots of taxes, or that's not what they're there for.
We may yet succeed in this experiment of lowering our effective tax rates and our statutory tax rates to draw more business to the U.S., but so far we're not seeing the type of level of growth in business and investment that would make up for the lost revenue when we lowered our tax rates from 35 to 21. So yeah, it's an issue because we need the money.
As of 2017, the USA's corporate tax revenue as a share of the larger economy was lower than most other peer nations, ranking below Italy, South Korea, and Mexico.
We're in a lot of trouble. We're facing $1 trillion deficits as far as the eye can see.
Ultimately, this means everyone else has to pick up the slack. That $2 billion Amazon is not paying will have to get paid by smaller businesses that don't have the wherewithal to lobby for tax breaks. It'll get paid by middle-income families in the form of higher taxes in some way.
I'm a tax lawyer, and I drafted tax rules for Congress for 6 years. Multinationals have a very strong presence on the Hill. When I was there, we would meet every week with companies and their lobbyists. And I think the interest is disproportionate. I mean, every American, including every American company, has a right to petition Congress and to share their concerns with Congress. The trouble is sometimes those with the most resources have the loudest voice.
It's a question that came from and centered during Amazon's hunt for a second headquarters.
Amazon has made it official. The online giant announced it's splitting its new headquarters into 2 locations.
Crystal City in Northern Virginia and Long Island City in Queens.
The company courted massive interest from hundreds of cities.
Amazon today saying they are bringing at least 25,000 jobs with an average salary of $150,000.
New York's governor and mayor saying the $3 billion in tax incentives they gave Amazon for an expected $27.5 billion in tax revenue.
That is the highest rate of return for an economic incentive program that the state has ever offered.
This certainly consolidates New York City as a great international tech hub.
We should not have a regressive tax system in which large, profitable corporations like Amazon pay nothing in federal income.
Only time will tell, but one thing is for sure. It's quite normal for some corporations to pay no income tax to federal government. Is that something normal? If you have learned something with this video, please leave a comment below and subscribe. See you soon!